The rain hadn't stopped for 2 days straight. Newcastle's harbor shimmered under the flicker of distant lightning, and the sound of thunder rolled like a slow drum across the Hunter River. Detective Miles O'Connor stood on the edge of the old bridge, his coat soaked through, eyes fixed on the dark water below. Something about tonight felt heavier, like the air itself was holding its breath. A fisherman had called it in at dawn, a body tangled in the pylons beneath Hunter Bridge. When Miles arrived, the body was gone, washed away by the current, leaving behind only a single clue, a silver locket, cracked open, with a photograph of a young woman smiling faintly. The name Clara Wren was etched inside, small and delicate. Miles had seen that name before, on a missing persons file 2 years ago. Clara had vanished without a trace. Her parents had left town, broken by grief. The case was cold, buried under piles of unsolved disappearances that haunted the Hunter region. But now, with that locket pulled from the river's throat, it was alive again. And so were the ghosts Miles had tried to forget. He lit a cigarette, shielding the flame from the wind. "You're back, aren't you?" he muttered to the night. The sound of rain hitting metal echoed like whispers, and for a second, Miles thought he heard someone laugh behind him. He turned sharply, nothing but empty bridge and shadows. The coroner's van pulled up beside him, headlights slicing through the fog. Forensics tech Ella Kane stepped out, boots splashing in puddles. "You look like you've seen a ghost, detective." Miles gave a thin smile. "Maybe I have." He handed her the locket. She studied it, brow furrowing. "Clara Wren, didn't you work that case?" Miles nodded slowly. "And failed it." They searched the banks until sunrise, but the tide had swallowed the evidence whole. Just as Ella was about to call it off, her torch caught something glinting near the rocks, a rusted chain with a padlock attached. Miles knelt, brushing away mud. The lock bore the same engraving, CW. His stomach tightened. This wasn't random. Someone wanted the body found, and someone wanted him to see this. Back at the station, the rain still beat against the glass. Miles spread the photos on his desk, comparing the old case file with the new evidence. Clara's photo stared up at him, the same soft smile, the same eyes that once belonged to a university student who dreamed of being a journalist. The deeper he looked, the more something gnawed at his gut. Her notes from the old case mentioned a name, Project Rainlight. He opened the archive drive. Corrupted files, missing documents, restricted tags. Someone had buried this deep, too deep for a simple disappearance. Miles glanced around the quiet office. It was past midnight, the hum of fluorescent lights buzzing like insects. He clicked restore, and the screen flickered alive. A folder appeared, Rainlight footage, confidential. He opened the first clip. Clara's face appeared on the grainy video, her voice shaking but determined. Open quote, "If you're watching this, they found out. Don't trust anyone in uniform, not even the ones who say they're helping." Close quote. Miles froze. His own badge number flashed briefly on a board behind her, circled in red. The screen went black. He sat back, heart thundering. "What the hell did you uncover, Clara?" he whispered. Outside, a lightning bolt cracked across the sky, illuminating the Hunter Bridge in the distance. And for the briefest moment, he saw a silhouette standing there, motionless, watching him through the rain. The phone on his desk rang once, then twice. When he picked it up, a distorted voice whispered through static. Open quote, "Detective O'Connor, stop digging, or you'll join her in the river." Close quote. The line went dead. Miles stared at the receiver, knuckles white. The rain outside intensified, pounding the glass like fists. For the first time in years, he felt it, fear, cold and crawling. But beneath it all, there was something stronger, determination. He poured himself a shot of whiskey, grabbed his coat, and headed back into the storm. Hunter Bridge wasn't done with him yet. The river remembers. The storm raged harder as Detective Miles O'Connor crossed the empty streets of Newcastle. The city lights blurred through sheets of rain, and every puddle reflected fragments of red and blue sirens. His mind was a storm too. Clara's video, his badge number circled in red, and that voice warning him to stop digging. But Miles had never been good at stopping. He parked by the waterfront warehouse where Clara had once worked part-time. The place had been abandoned for years, windows boarded, graffiti creeping over the walls like scars. Inside, the air smelled of rust and seaweed. Miles flicked his torch across the dusty floor. Footprints, fresh ones. He drew his gun, heart thumping steady now, not from fear but focus. The beam caught a shape at the far end, a chair overturned. A laptop sat open on a crate beside it, screen flickering. He moved closer, boots crunching on broken glass. The laptop displayed a folder titled Rainlight Archive. Files dated 2 years ago, the same week Clara vanished. He clicked one. The video opened to shaky footage of men in suits unloading crates marked medical research. But the contents weren't medical. They were chemical drums labeled with hazard symbols and an old mining company logo. Clara's voice whispered from behind the camera. Open quote, "They're dumping toxins into the river, covering it up through police channels." Close quote. Miles clenched his jaw. The Hunter River, the same water that had swallowed Clara's body. He copied the footage onto a flash drive, but before he could eject it, a floorboard creaked behind him. He spun, gun raised. A figure stood at the entrance, hooded, rain dripping from their coat. "Drop the weapon, detective," a woman's voice ordered. "You're trespassing on federal grounds." Miles didn't lower his aim. "Federal, huh? Then you already know what's on this laptop." The woman stepped forward into the light. It was Sergeant Ella Kane, his partner, the one person he trusted. "Ella," he whispered, but her expression wasn't one of surprise, it was guilt. "You were supposed to leave this alone, Miles," she said softly. Rainlight wasn't meant to go public. Clara didn't understand that. Miles' stomach twisted. "You were part of it?" She sighed, lowering her gun. "It wasn't supposed to go this far. They paid to test the chemicals, nothing more. But Clara, she threatened to expose everything. They made it look like an accident." "They? Who's they, Ella?" Before she could answer, headlights flashed through the cracks of the warehouse door. 2 black SUVs pulled up outside, tires screeching. Ella's eyes widened. "They followed me here," she whispered. "You need to run." But Miles didn't move. "I'm done running." The doors burst open. Armed men in raincoats stormed in, guns raised. Miles fired first, diving behind a support beam as bullets tore through the walls. Sparks flew from the metal crates. Ella shouted over the chaos, "Go! Take the drive!" Miles sprinted through a side exit, clutching the flash drive tight. A bullet grazed his arm, heat searing through the cold rain. He stumbled into the alley, breath sharp and ragged. Behind him, the warehouse exploded in a burst of fire, the shockwave throwing him to the ground. He looked back. The building was a blazing inferno. Ella was gone. Hours later, he sat inside a dim motel room by the highway, bandaged and bleeding. The drive lay on the table, beside a half-empty bottle of scotch. He replayed Clara's footage again, her trembling voice now mixed with Ella's betrayal. The truth was bigger than he'd imagined. Police, corporations, politicians, all tied to Project Rainlight. He opened another folder, names. A list appeared, full of signatures and account numbers. At the bottom was one that froze him completely. Chief Inspector Douglas Hart, his boss. Miles let out a long, shaky breath. He had enough evidence now to burn the entire department, but only if he lived long enough to release it. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He hesitated, then answered. Open quote, "You shouldn't have survived that fire, detective. Guess I'm unlucky that way. You've got 24 hours to hand over what you took. Otherwise, the next body we pull from Hunter River will be yours." Close quote. The call ended. Miles looked out the motel window, dawn breaking over the rain-soaked streets. The city looked calm again, pretending nothing had happened. But he knew the truth. The river might wash away blood, but it never forgets. He slipped the flash drive into his jacket pocket, loaded his revolver, and whispered to the reflection in the window. Open quote, "Let's finish what Clara started." Close quote. Then he walked out into the rising sun, the last light over Hunter Bridge. The morning after the storm was eerily still. Newcastle's skyline shimmered under a dull gray haze, the air thick with the smell of wet concrete and burnt metal. Detective Miles O'Connor parked his car at the edge of Hunter Bridge, the same place it all began, the same place Clara's ghost still lingered in the water below. The city might have moved on, but the river hadn't. It remembered everything. He checked his watch. 8:47 a.m., exactly 12 hours since the call. Whoever had threatened him would be watching. Miles had sent copies of the Rainlight footage to a single contact, an old journalist friend, Sam Weller. If anything happened to him, Sam would publish the files everywhere. Miles wasn't planning on dying, but he was done being careful. A black car approached from the far end of the bridge. Miles didn't move. The car stopped, and Chief Inspector Douglas Hart stepped out, umbrella in hand, immaculate as ever. His voice carried across the wet asphalt. Open quote, "You always did have a flair for drama, Miles." Close quote. Miles gave a cold smirk. "Guess I learned it from the best." Hart walked closer, the rhythmic tap of his shoes echoing through the fog. "You've made a mess. That footage was classified for a reason. You have no idea what you're dealing with." "I know enough," Miles shot back. Rainlight was never about medical testing. It was chemical dumping under government contracts. Clara found out, and you silenced her. Hart sighed, almost bored. "Clara was a mistake. You're about to become another." He nodded slightly. From the shadows beneath the bridge, 2 armed men appeared. Miles raised his revolver, steady. "I'm not here to negotiate. You're done, Chief." Hart chuckled. "You think a flash drive and a conscience make you a hero? You're standing in the middle of nowhere alone, bleeding, and outnumbered." But Hart didn't know. Miles wasn't alone. From a parked truck on the opposite side, Sam Weller's drone lifted into the mist, its camera flashing red. It streamed the confrontation live to half the city's newsrooms. The audio crackled through a hidden mic in Miles's lapel. Every word Hart said was already being recorded. Hart's smile faltered when he noticed the blinking light. "What have you done?" Miles took a step forward. "What Clara started." Hart's guards raised their weapons, but before they could fire, screeching tires cut through the silence. A police cruiser burst onto the bridge. Behind the wheel was Sergeant Ella Kane, bruised, alive, smoke and guilt in her eyes. She stepped out, shouting, "Drop your guns, it's over!" Hart's face darkened. "You were supposed to be dead, Sergeant." "Yeah," she said, voice trembling. "So were you." Gunfire erupted. The sound tore through the fog like thunder. Miles dove behind a concrete barrier, returning fire. Bullets shattered glass and ricocheted off metal. Ella sprinted forward, covering him, shouting directions. The black car's engine caught a stray round and burst into flames. Hart stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder. You can't stop this! Rainlight funds half the bloody state!" Miles rose, blood seeping through his sleeve. "Then maybe the state needs burning." He fired once. The bullet hit Hart square in the chest. The chief collapsed against the guardrail, gasping, eyes wide with disbelief as his body slid over, falling into the same dark river that had taken Clara. Silence followed. Only the fire crackled and the river roared below. Ella limped toward Miles. "It's done," she said quietly. He looked at her, rain dripping from his hair. "No, it's just begun. That footage is live." Sam's voice came through Miles's earpiece. Open quote, "The feed's everywhere, mate. Every major network. They can't bury it now." Close quote. Miles exhaled finally. The city sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder. By the time backup arrived, the bridge was covered in smoke and shattered glass. Miles stood by the edge, watching the current twist beneath him. He could almost hear Clara's voice, soft, relieved. Open quote, "You did it, Miles." Close quote. He placed the cracked silver locket on the railing, letting it slip into the river. "Rest easy, kid." Ella joined him, silent. Together they watched the dawn rise, light bleeding across the hunter, washing over everything it once hid. The truth had surfaced at last, and though the river still whispered its secrets, for the first time in years, Miles O'Connor walked away from Hunter Bridge, not as a haunted man, but as one finally free.